Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from DeltaCX.com. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy and agency. We do projects, training, consulting, and other cool stuff. So check us out if you're interested. We'd love to come to your company and help you be more customer centric. First of all, mic check. Someone said yesterday that my microphone sounded weird and that it sounded like it was interfering with a cell phone. Does my microphone sound weird? I do have a fan on next to me, but I want to make sure it sounds good to all of you. Of course, before we jump in on our critical thinking adventures, let's give a moment to thank, and I know this list is outdated, but all of you, past, present, and future, who pressed the join button on YouTube and are donating smaller and larger amounts of money to the channel. Thank you for keeping me in streaming software and in chocolate chips. I definitely had some today. Yum, yum. So we haven't done critical thinking stream in a few weeks. Hey, Malika. So we've got a lot of stuff saved up for today. I think today will go long. I can see us going an hour and a half today instead of our usual hour. So if you can't stay with us the whole time, that's okay. It's always archived on YouTube in the Critical Thinking Streams playlist, so you can always find it there later. And if you'd like to send something in for Critical Thinking Stream, which I normally do every other Friday, jump on over to deltacx.com/links. Hi, Karen. Also a reminder that there is a cool merch shop. Today I am wearing Let's Not Congratulate Ourselves Just Yet t-shirt. I accidentally bought a large. It's a little big on me. I'm probably more of a medium, but you can buy fun stuff at deltacx.shop. Please do. And does my microphone sound okay? People in the audience, someone said it sounded like there was cell phone interference, and I do have a fan running next to me and want to make sure everything sounds good because I can't hear myself. Not hearing. No idea. I need you to tell me. So we've got lots of stuff to go through today. I'm going to get right in on it, and I will go to the first thing, which was a job that people sent. And I think it looks like this. Let's double check. Yes, here we go. Here's me. Here's the optional tip jar, which will catch all of your super thanks and super chats and super stickers and tips. I'm trying to remember how you even tip, but anyway. And it's me, and it's the chat that I see, and it's my screen. So here we go. This is a user experience analyst job that seems to already be closed. I am seeing UX analyst jobs a little bit more. Sometimes I see strategist, but these seem to be strategic jobs where you may or may not be designing, but it seems to be kind of research plus strategy plus some internal looking at our own stuff and looking for opportunities. So I think why someone sent this in, because I looked at this one just before the show started, is I think this job hasn't decided what it wants to be when it grows up. This is not a user interface design position. Graphic design skills are not required, but it's not only UX research. UX research is required, more than UX research. Okay, so more than UX research, what is that? They're saying the UX analyst takes care of creating a frictionless experience, but it's not UI designs or wireframes, but maybe sometimes it will be. Okay, that's where we already run into some trouble here. Why not just say, this role doesn't create UI designs, but sometimes you might wireframe something. So this just comes across, I think, as disorganized. And I think it can be a turnoff for the people who might otherwise think this is a pretty good sounding job. The company just seems a little weird, like they're not even sure what this job does. It can be awkward to go into a job that isn't sure what it is. Ideal flowcharts and specifications for features, apparent and latent needs of users, intuitive and simple flowcharts. flowcharts, flowcharts. So hypothetically, to me, this sounds like a very strategic UX researcher who's going to get a little bit into task analysis or user flows and recommend better user flows. I think this job can make sense. I just think they haven't worded it very well, especially since they can't seem to decide whether or not you're making wireframes. So that's a little strange. So this job is closed. You can't have it. But I think it's mostly okay because it's really researcher plus strategist, which I think should go together, and user flows, yes. So I think this one probably isn't as weird as the person might have thought when they sent it in. But thank you for sending it in. Now let's go to my other screen where I have a zillion. And of course, you in the chat room, join on in. Let's hear your comments and suggestions. So this article is going around. I imagine it has a lot of views. It's one of the many articles. Yeah, right. At least it's not ChatGPT. Yeah, it does seem like it was written by a human, but a slightly confused human. So this article is going around. The UX research reckoning is here. I am not sure if I agree with that or not, only because I've heard that for 10 or 15 years. I keep hearing UX design is dead. UX is going away. I mean, I've been seeing that so long that it's hard for me to believe that it's true because I'm not sure it is. But we had two people send it in and they sent it in with commentary. So I'm going to turn up my fan. Let me know if the sound bothers you. So the first person said, the article presents that we're spending more time on middle-level research and less on micro and macro levels. I feel like this is a harsh truth, and the author explains why. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Okay, you'll get that. The second person who sent it in said, my first reaction was to be defensive, but I felt it made some good points about where a lot of UX research tends to focus and that people never take our roles seriously. I think the first assertion about our roles being decimated is untrue, or at least there are zero facts to back it up in the piece, but it would be great to hear your thoughts on this. Are we too focused on middle-range research? I'll admit that's where I tend to do the bulk of my work, because as much as people say how important it is to do strategic work, it seems pretty rare that UX researchers actually ever have the opportunity to do work at that level. I'm not sure if I agree that all middle-range research is too vague and not actionable, but again, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So I haven't seen this article yet. I've been a little bit busy the last month, but I get the feeling it's one of the articles in the bucket of articles that are trying to say, ooh, so many of us got laid off, and they blame us. They blame us. We didn't present enough value. We didn't prove our worth enough, which again, we shouldn't have to do, but let's take a look at what it says. And again, I probably won't have time to read the whole article, but we'll read some of it because it looks like it's pretty long, so we're not going to get through all of it together, but let's skim it and see what we can learn. So this is from Judd Anton, who I've never heard of in my life, so I don't know who that is. No one's releasing detailed data about which roles were eliminated during this year of layoffs, but from a distance, it appears user experience research teams have been absolutely crushed. Hundreds of researchers lost their jobs. So based on some of the early numbers I saw, it actually looks more like thousands or tens of thousands, because I saw a couple of articles from last year about how many people were laid off, and someone had some numbers or estimates on how many were from UX, and now we know there were a lot more layoffs, so if they continue in the same ratio as the numbers someone had from like November, it could be thousands or tens of thousands. Let's see. The UX research is dying. Again, I always find this to be inflammatory and clickbait. I've been hearing for 15 years that it's dying, and so it's hard to believe now that it's dying because you keep telling me it's dying when it's not dying. It's definitely not dying, especially if product managers are trying to do it. So is it really dying? These are good critical thinking questions. What about you? The reckoning is here. Again, that seems very inflated and dramatic. And if you don't really back this up or tell us what that means, what does it mean that the reckoning is here? I don't know yet. The discipline can survive and thrive, but we better adapt and quick. But does he go into how we did this to ourselves? Because I'd love to talk about that. The golden age. The last 15 years have been a golden age for UX research. I don't agree with that. I feel like UX research is often misunderstood, misused. We're told just hurry up and do something fast, just run a survey, don't do anything that takes too long. No, I don't think it's been a golden age for UX research. So what makes you say that, author person? Often riding the wave of growing design departments, research scaled proportionally. That's not what I've seen. I definitely see a lot more designers than researchers. Most of the companies I've worked at have had 4 researchers for the entire company. So I don't think it has scaled proportionally. Perhaps that's this person's experience, but it doesn't match my experience, so it doesn't feel true. But that's just a difference of my experience. Companies seem to buy into what modern multi-method HCI-driven UX research could offer. I don't think so. I think especially if you take a look at how many courses and videos and webinars are about, we're going to teach you how to get more buy-in for UX research, this doesn't seem true to me. I don't think companies are buying in. That is definitely not my experience. So this doesn't seem true to me. And I really think this person should credit whoever did this art, possibly Midjourney. I think we should credit where art comes from. Ana Lucia says, Amy Santi kind of debunked this. She basically said, UX research has tons of professionals in their networks. We all saw the posts about the layoffs. Very true. Doesn't mean it was the most affected area, but it does seem from our narrow vision, and this is fear-mongering, right? Suddenly, the industry was awash with jobs. I personally helped grow Facebook's UX research team from a dozen to over 100, then did the same. Okay, so now we have the I'm great portion of this. So this, this person managed to grow research at companies with squillions of dollars. But then again, these were people who got laid off, and the company claimed they overhired. So did this guy do the right thing or not? If the company is claiming he overhired, do you still brag about that? I'm not sure. So what's the reckoning? Layoffs are no accident. They're making a statement about business value. The meaning is clear. They don't get it. We're misunderstood. No seat at the table. I'm not going to disagree with this. I led research teams, and I thought and said many of these same things. Okay, so far, according to this guy, it was the golden age of research. Research was fantastic. Everyone was buying in, but yet he was also saying people don't get it. We're misunderstood. We're forgotten. We don't drive strategy. We have no seat at the table. So I'm not feeling this so far. It does make me want to stop reading the article, but since the people who sent it in seem to be pointing at things deeper in it, we'll go a little bit more, but I have to say this person's already lost me, and I'm unlikely to kind of suspend my disbelief and continue listening to them. UX research hasn't done enough to justify itself. So I'm going to point directly at this guy. This guy said he led research at big and famous companies, he grew teams, and then we know a lot of those people got laid off. So evidently, he didn't do enough for research to justify itself. And my question to him would be, what did he do wrong? Is he speaking here about what he did wrong? Or does he think he's just fine and other people have been doing something wrong? Because it sounds like he should put himself in his own bucket. Keep pointing the finger at everyone who did us wrong, but it's more productive to look inward. I hope you'll look inward, but there's finger pointing to be done also. The wrong research. We've been doing the wrong research. So here's how he explains this. Macro research is strategic in nature, business first, and future thinking. It provides concrete frameworks that guide macro business decisions. If he's going to say we should have been doing more macro research, I'd like to remind him of all of the research and development workers and teams that were doing macro research, and that got decimated. Companies evidently didn't want that. They read a few books about how fast, cool startups could be, and they didn't want strategic research. So I'm not sure where this guy is coming from. Middle range research is focused on user understanding and product development. Micro research is closer to technical usability, eye tracking. And where did he get this? I'm really not getting it. Can I stop reading this article now? This is just a bad article. Because I don't understand where these definitions came from. Did he make them up? Are these accepted definitions? Because I don't see it this way. I believe that research that is strategic in nature shouldn't be business first. Now, it's going to guide the business. It's going, yeah, exactly. Malika's like, huh? It's going to guide the business. The business should be creating strategies and initiatives and decisions based on it, but it wouldn't be business first. We're not researching the business. We're researching, everybody say it with me. Let's see if everything still works. People, contexts, and systems. You can't, your research can't be business first. It's got to be about target users and customers so that it can guide the business. Yes, it's got to be future thinking because anything not happening in this moment is future. So I have to say that I don't agree with even the foundations of what he's laid out, because if the foundation is, yeah, Alvina says, I haven't heard of this terminology. If he's going to say we've been doing too much middle and micro and we need to do macro, I would say, but remember when all the people doing macro got fired. So does the business want this from anybody? So middle range, middle range, middle range, middle range. Business is greater than the user. Ana Lucia says, I've been seeing some senior UXRs saying that what isn't helping us as a discipline is being associated with UX because people make up assumptions about what we do. What do you think? I do think that that moving away from the term UX could benefit us. I've been saying that for about 4 years, and it made people kind of upset. They started moving toward product design, but I don't think that's an improvement, and it doesn't explain research. I like to think of it as CX research, but will it be better if we call it something different? I don't know. I really don't. So, here he says, design and product processes are built around the premise that user understanding is necessary to develop products. It's a lie. So, if I am a leader above this guy, I think my impression would be, we don't need UX. I think this guy is doing a great job teaching us we don't need UX. We don't need to understand about users. We don't need to develop products that are customer centric. We just need to research future things that our business could do. F the user. The user is a pawn. We'll just push around the board. And why are we acting like our process should include users? I don't know who hires this guy or what, but I guess maybe this guy gets hired at companies who feel this way, who feel like, who cares what users need? Who cares what users are? Because this guy will lead us straight into a research universe where users are secondary. He's already said that. Even his macro level research doesn't care about users. That's what I'm learning from him. How come user research and business first are in one article? Yeah. Ana Lucia says, my brain isn't 100% clear today. Yeah, thanks for joining us, Ana Lucia. You definitely don't have to. But I think I hurt myself in confusion. Pokemon reference, where's Kayleen? I don't know. So ultimately, I'm going to stop reading this article because I find it 100% garbage. I don't think there's a good consistency to the writing. I think that this is someone who is helping not prove the value of UX and not prove the value of UX research. So this is not someone I'm interested in reading because I think he's just going to put himself out there. I think this article says, please hire me. I am business first. Who cares about the users? We'll make money. We'll figure it out. Hire me to run your research team because I kiss business ass, and sure, users are secondary. I'm going to save you so much time and money because users are secondary. I guess that's who hires this guy. I'm just guessing. I have no idea. Yeah, being here helps. Okay, so let's move on. This is something called Winter with a Y, who I've never heard of. It sounds like they have some sort of tool. And it says, Winter is now showing AI-generated eye gaze prediction heat maps for pages you're testing, showing where people's gaze is directed. Again, I believe we need a conditional verb here. Since this is a prediction, we shouldn't say where people's gaze is detective. It's where we predict the gaze would be directed. We don't know. This is a prediction. What the heat map shows is where people are most likely to look at and what they're likely to miss. It will show if any information is likely to be overlooked by users and where design improvements need to be made. It's a deep learning machine trained on real eye tracking data and can make predictions. It's 96% accurate. So take a look at this. Take a look at the heat map. I assume this is the estimated heat map, that the predicted heat map. Is there anybody who is surprised by anything they see here? Is anybody going, oh my God, wow, thank God we had this AI predict where people were going to look? As a UX designer or researcher, I had no idea where people were going to look. I never could have guessed they were going to look at our large H1. I never could have imagined they were going to look at our hero image. I never could have imagined they were going to look at our CTA. I never could have imagined they were going, is there a link to the study where 96% is validated? Probably not. So I think that anyone who has more than a few years of experience in UX would be able to look at a page and probably estimate with quite reasonable accuracy where some of the key eyeballs will go. I don't think you need to use Winter or pay for Winter. I believe that if you're experienced in UX, you already know where people look, and that's why you do UX design, because you have a sense of how you can lay out a page to make sure people see the most important things and have the opportunity to skim through the less important things. That's your job. That's part of it. So I don't think you need this. I think you know how to do this. So I can only assume this is just not for us because we don't need this. So maybe this is for a marketing person who can't predict this. It's not for us. You don't need this. Thanks for dropping by. Okay. This is a Medium article from April that says product discovery methods for a product delivery world, part 2 of 2. I haven't seen part 1, but we're gonna jump right in and see what this person has to say. I don't really recognize this person's name, so I'm not sure I know them. This is an exceedingly long article, so I think there's only so much we're going to get through in our time together, because you can see from the top of the screen my browser tabs. We have a lot more to talk about today. So let's do some skimming and use our visual hierarchy to see what jumps out at us. Let's take a look at some of his subheads here in Medium. Step 1, introduce the job to be done. In our example, the job is capture early musical ideas. Okay, so I guess this was some sort of music system. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be collecting your feedback on a concept, but before we get to that, I want to talk to you about your process for capturing early musical ideas. My question is, and I want to know what the audience thinks, some of you are researchers, have we given away too much if we start out by telling people that? Or is that okay? Sometimes I worry that in our introduction we give away too much about what we're trying to study and what we're trying to learn, and that there are kind of other ways to get at it. That's my thought. Let's see. 2, identify the customer's desired outcomes. We want the customer to think about what's important when they're trying to capture early musical ideas. What does success look like for them? What are their most important goals? What challenges get in the way? Okay, so my question is, are these the things you're hoping to find out, or are these your questions? I'm not sure. Also, it looks like he's a Tony Ulwick Stratogen jobs to be done guy. I do not agree with that model. Again, my opinion, you might love it. Not a fan of the jobs to be done model, especially the Stratogen version. So he's saying we're listening for a need statement. Customers are trying to maximize the chance to achieve their desired outcomes, minimize friction. We must capture these desired outcomes. Yeah, Shweta says it's a bad question. It's confusing and grammatically incorrect. How important is it for you to achieve your desired outcomes? Does anybody remember what I call these types of questions? Who remembers? I don't say it that often on the show, but I have it in some PowerPoint slides. Who remembers what I call this type of question? I know we're 40 seconds delayed, so I'm going to wait to see what people come up with here on my, because you can see when stuff comes up as I'm talking. Okay, I'm not seeing any comments yet, so I'm going to tell you, I call this cat's urinary tract. And that's because in the 1990s, there was a TV commercial in America with a guy with a cat. And no, it's not the Four Horsemen, close. And they zoomed in on the guy, and the guy goes, "Is a cat's urinary tract health important?" And my thought was, only if you want to keep your cat. You know, like, in what universe is a cat's urinary tract health not important if we want our cat to live? So whenever a question seems to answer itself or only have one fairly obvious answer, I call it cat's urinary tract. And in my opinion, this is in the cat's urinary tract bucket. Okay, so your desired outcome relates to capturing early musical ideas. How important is it to you to achieve your desired outcome? What? Nah, not important at all. I don't freaking care if I get this done at all. Who cares if I successfully capture my musical ideas or not? I also wonder, I agree with Ana Lucia that this is a little leading. How did we determine that this is about capturing early musical ideas? Why aren't we asking, tell me about your process for writing music? Maybe it's not about capturing early musical ideas. Maybe there's a different process by which people write or create music, and it doesn't necessarily include an early musical idea. That's just an assumption. We're assuming that somebody wants to capture an early musical idea. How did we find that out? Maybe that was in part 1 of an article I'm not reading. Shweta says, if this is the research they do, I'd be laughing at them as a participant. Yeah, I've been a participant in some studies, and I've said, how is my answer going to be actionable for you? How are you going to know what to do based on how I answer this? So I think this is an article we can probably stop reading because this all seems quite strange and not that good. How important is it for you to achieve your goal? Nah, I've got a goal. Who cares? That doesn't make any sense. Ana Lucia says, saying it like that is definitely confusing. I'd be asking them what they mean. Yeah, I don't understand why we're giving people pseudo-survey questions in a human interview. A human interview should be a conversation and not a set of survey questions of how desirable or how whatever on a scale of Z to Q. How satisfied are you with your ability to achieve your desired outcomes? Who can see what's wrong with that question? There's a couple of things I don't like with this question. First of all, it's extremely bland in general. How satisfied are you with your ability to achieve your desired outcomes? I also find that it feels cold and clinical. This doesn't feel like we're having a friendly conversation with a participant. We talk so much about creating rapport with people, and then this sounds like, hello, I am robot. How satisfied are you with your ability? This doesn't feel like a great human conversation. But I believe that the way this is written, you are likely to get people who score very high. Why? Because you've asked me, how happy am I with my own ability to do something? It would take someone with a lot of self-awareness to say, I'm pretty bad at this. I suck. I'm bad. Yeah, Ana Lucia says, is this some sort of interview merged with a survey, like it's mixed methods? I'm not even sure. Did he say we're sending out a survey or we're talking to people? Because I thought we were talking to people, but even if this is a survey, I don't like the question because I feel like it is accidentally telling me this is your fault. This is your ability to achieve, you know what the problem is? Your ability. It's your ability to achieve your desired outcomes. It must be you. How frequently do you do something? Does that matter? If that matters, why didn't we screen and recruit for that? Hey, we just want to talk to people who are often capturing early musical ideas. And now we're supposed to introduce the concept. So we've already built something. So we're supposedly doing research to learn how people do something, but we don't freaking care because we already have a concept. So what is this? If you have a concept, you're at step 3 of the scientific method. Come on, I made a new graphic. Where did it go? We're at step 3 of the scientific method when you say, I have a concept, I have a design, I have a thing. But what happened to the research that came before it? Step 1 of the scientific method is do research, especially observations. Step 2 is form a question. Step 3 is what could answer that question. So if we're jumping into hypothesis, then I don't understand what this is. This isn't the screener survey. This is some sort of survey. But we're obviously talking to people because we're going to show them a concept. So I don't get it. I don't get this at all. Yeah, Elvina says this isn't even testing, it's validation. That's right, because if I learn that you want to capture early musical ideas and I go, well, check out this app. We have an app that will capture early musical ideas. What do you think? And we're going to show them a sketch of a digital app. Okay, imagine you have pressed the record button. Imagine you've pressed the record button and you can now capture a musical idea. What do you think? Yeah, I guess that works. Sure. Elvina's right. This is trying to validate a concept we have when it sounds like we really don't understand the job to be done, which is part of why I don't like jobs to be done, and especially the Stratogen version of it. Yeah, Elvina says the answers will be, oh, nice, that's brilliant. Yeah, but why can't I open my Samsung voice recorder that came with my Android phone and record a musical idea? What is so special about this? What is different about this? And I still don't understand why we're showing people sketches of digital products and asking them to imagine what it does and tell us it's great. So I'm done with this article. We're half done with the show, but not half done with stuff. Let's move on. Ana Lucia says, storytelling. This person doesn't seem to have that in mind. We have to use some kind of storytelling during our interviews, and it facilitates their participation. Yep, done. Okay, this is Dan, I don't know how he pronounces his name, Weiner. I do not follow him, I am not connected with him, and I find I often disagree with him. So whoever sent it in, good luck. 5 competencies that are essential to your product design career and some resources to help you level up. Visual design. Again, most product design is visual design with almost no UX design at this point. So sure, at this point, I guess you do need to know visual design if you want to work in product design. Product design is a lot of visual design. Interviewing users. I do not think you have to be a researcher or interview users if you are a designer. I would say that is not essential, that is optional. My opinion. I'm glad that he linked to Stephanie, but I don't agree that you need that. Product thinking. I don't even know what that is. What is that? Thinking like a product manager. I definitely don't know what that is, especially because product managers want to seem to think like us. So what is that? Oh, Schweitzer says, this guy is so preachy. Yeah, I've seen some unpleasant things from him. He recommends Pavel, I think that's how you say that. I have found that guy on LinkedIn to be so pro product management. He seems to be against other things. And I've often disagreed with him, and there's even something in my book that he may have posted to LinkedIn, which I didn't like. Communication and presenting. Yes, that's for pretty much every job. Every job requires communication. I can't think of a job that doesn't require communication of some sort, so that's grazie al cazzo. Helvina, I guess what they mean by product thinking is maybe thinking about the business. Who knows? He wasn't clear. User testing. Again, at some companies, your product designer or UX designer does usability testing. At some companies, that's given back to the researcher. So I wouldn't say it's essential, but it's not bad to learn. But again, you have to learn it. You can't fake it. You're going to have to know more about good research to get it right. And that's all of research. Who remembers my graphic? All of the planning and recruiting and running the sessions or doing them unmoderated and checking the videos. There's a lot more to research than just go find a few people to look at this thing. So I'm not a fan of Dan Weiner, so I don't really agree with this post. Let's move on. Okay, Vitaly Friedman 3 weeks ago said, design KPIs and UX metrics with examples, resources, and articles to measure the impact of design and track it over time for designers and teams. Design isn't art, it solves problems. Okay, so he's got a list of some examples, and he's linking to some other people for more metrics. Now, metrics are not the kind of thing where we can say, hey, this has to be your metric. It's going to be really different for different companies and teams and products and audiences. So just because a metric is on a list and it sounds good doesn't mean it's the right metric for you. Also, I don't usually count these metrics during a usability test or a user test of some sort. I'm really looking at these after it's out. So, task success rate. Yes, we want people to be successful in the task. Notice he's got error recovery speed. I would also say number of errors and severity of errors, because sure, the task might be ultimately successful, but did they make mistakes along the way? Those are things we should be fixing. So I would look at task success, but also errors and how severe the errors are. Now we might not know how severe the errors are unless we're watching people, or our system may understand different types of error messages and we can judge severity there. Time to complete should be low. So I agree with that. Average time to relevance. And again, that's a little bit strange. I think it's kind of like the average time to where people are starting to accomplish their task or get the information they're looking for. Elvina says, I guess what they mean by product thinking is, sorry, that for some reason that came up again. Search results, relevance rate. Search query iterations, relevance of search results. Okay, frequency of errors. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Now, he says less than 3, though really I'd like to see 0. So it's not, if there are 2 errors per task or per visit, don't go, yeah, it's good enough. Still look into why you have errors. Anyway, ultimately, I think many of these can be okay. I don't think this is a bad list. I think we just have to use our critical thinking and say, is this right for our product or service or team? Because some of these will be right and make sense, and some of these will not be good and could take us in the wrong direction. Okay, I'm trying to point my fan at myself a little bit better. Please hold. There we go. Okay, moving on. What I learned as a didn't someone already send this in? Yeah, I could swear we got this one already. Does anybody remember this one? What I learned as a product designer at Apple? I feel like we saw this one already. And it was like, you know, you might not do user testing, just trust your gut, you know what you're doing. Be a highly output generator over a strategic thinker. So they don't want you to be a strategic thinker. Yeah, people remember that I've done this one before. So let's not bother. Now we have a double header from Jared Spool. I was sent 2 things from Jared Spool. I guess you guys wanted to really welcome me back from my month off with a double helping of Jared Spool. Y'all owe me a really nice dinner because I would love to see him no longer working in the industry. So this was an article that he wrote a few weeks ago. I guess maybe this is on LinkedIn. It says, the average user experience is a harmful distraction. Focus on extremes instead. This immediately to me seems inflammatory and rather strange. I don't understand why he isn't saying the average user experience isn't the only thing to look at. There's people at the ends of the bell curves that we might think are extremes. Don't forget them. So I don't understand. A lot of Spool stuff tends to be like, I don't know, he picks this very narrow thing and says, do this, don't do this. So, but let's go through it. There is no average user experience for your product or service. Are you sure? How do you know that? Where'd you get that information? Is there an average user experience? Maybe. What's the average user experience for LinkedIn? Maybe there's a handful of average user experiences. So I would say, even if we didn't use the word average, isn't there some typical user experiences or common user experiences? Are we sure there is no average user experience and that there is no average user? So does that mean there's no personas or segments or typologies because there's no, I mean, maybe is the, you know, I guess he has a problem with the word average, but I think he's giving it to you in such a way that you could misunderstand him. You could think that because he doesn't believe averages exist, there's no common experience. I think there are some common experiences or typical experiences. It seems he has a real problem with the word average. I don't know. Maybe someone that day told him he was rather average and he didn't like it. Pages don't load in an average amount of time. Yeah, they actually do. So you can take a statistical average of your page load. You could see that the page tends to load between this amount of seconds and this amount of seconds, and you could average that. So pages can have a statistical average or mean for their loading time. I'm not sure that sentence is true. There is no average satisfaction score. Sure. You could do a survey asking people to score you on things, and you could take a statistical mean or average for those scores. Yeah. Solomon says pure clickbait. Shweta says, is he talking about accessibility or extreme or very limited abilities? We don't know, because what I find in Jared's writing is that I find that he tends to be vague on purpose. It's harder to disagree with someone when you're not totally sure what they mean. And I find that when you're not totally sure what they mean, you invent what they mean. And you typically, due to cognitive biases, you typically invent that they must think like you do. And then you just go, yeah, I agree with them. So I think that he tends to be vague on purpose so that people will feel like they agree with him and he can get more followers and engagement. Every user is different and every experience is different. Averages take humanity out of our work. They ignore the experience of actual people. You can't tell me what an average user does with your product. The average user isn't real. Again, this doesn't seem right to me, and I don't feel like he's done a good job substantiating this. But because it is so broad and so vague, I can also see people going, yeah, you know, everybody's different. And averages aren't real. And I think if you shut off your critical thinking, you could start to feel like, yeah, he's got a point here. But I feel like he doesn't have a point here because it's vague. I mean, yes. Many users will experience different things, but there are also going to be common experiences. Ana Lucia says, I'll let Trustpilot know their website is garbage. How can they have average satisfaction scores? Right. Now, this continues, and right, Malika says, what's the conclusion of this? Well, there's a middle page. Thanks to Ana Lucia for the screenshots. I have Spool blocked on LinkedIn, so I could not see this article. You can tell me about the experience real users have. A real person with an authentic experience, not a mythical average person that doesn't exist and is impossible to design for. So this is making kind of less sense to me, because if I take this at face value, then I'm not supposed to look at the typical experience a user has or the common experience that many users have. I'm supposed, because that's impossible to design for, I have to look at one experience, one individual. So, and then he says, how can we get humanity back into our work? I'm assuming this is just clickbait and SEO for the word humanity, because I don't think of him as someone invested in that, but that's just my personal conclusion because I dislike him so much. Solomon, average take on the humanity out of our work. How would physics take the gravity out of the world? Yeah. We get humanity by focusing on real people and their experiences, focusing on the extremes. So I think if his point is, don't forget people you think are edge cases when you're designing, because edge cases are important too, that could be a good point. But I feel like he hasn't warmed us up very well for that point. He's trying to make us redefine words and change our worldview. Tell me about the person who's had the worst experience, an actual poor experience. Tell me about 5 people who had the worst experiences. Now tell me about who had the best experience. The differences between the extremes are the most interesting. Yeah, but I can't just focus on the worst and the best. Yes, those will surface in our research if we've recruited well, but those aren't the only experiences. I think by the same logic by which we would say the average experience isn't the only one to consider, the extremes aren't the only ones to consider either. Solomon says he's trying to sound poetic. I find that Jared tries to sound hard to disagree with, but I think he does that by being purposefully vague. It's hard to disagree with him when I'm not even sure where he's going with this. Shweta says, has he ever designed at all, or was he always just about talk? Shweta, debatable. I cannot prove that Jared has designed anything. We can design for real people's experiences. Grazie al cazzo. I really don't know what he's saying here. Who is he talking to? Who is it who is not considering real people's experiences? Is this like an anti-AI article? I don't even know what he's getting at. So obviously this does not pass our standards of meaningful, actionable, or helpful. I'm not finding meaning here. I don't feel like it's helping me, and I don't know what action to take because I already live in a world in which I do good qualitative research with real people. So what is his conclusion? We're making a big mistake when we work in averages. That's pretty much the only thing he's said so far. So evidently his conclusion is the only thing he's got here. I don't get it. I absolutely don't get it. I don't see the value in this article at all. I have no idea what to do after reading it. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know what I'm doing right. And I think it was incredibly vague and purposefully vague. So remember, critical thinking hats on, especially when you see Spool, because this stuff is written to just be so bizarrely vague that you feel like, yeah, we should stop thinking about the average user. What about those extremes? And I go, who are you that you weren't thinking about all the users? The users with the great experiences, the users with the worst experiences, all the users in the middle. What is he saying? Leave out the users in the middle to focus on the users on the ends? Why? The users with the best experiences might not need as much focus. They're succeeding. Or they believe they are. I don't get this. It literally doesn't make sense. But that's his style. That's his style. It's hard to disagree with him when it doesn't make sense. It's an alternate reality. It's like gaslighting. So this was another article that Spool wrote. It's on Medium. It's from about a month ago. Obviously, I'm not following him on Medium. I'm not reading him on Medium. So let's see what he's saying. A radical proposal, put UX research in charge. So my first question would be, in charge of what? But it doesn't look like a very long article. So let's take a look at what he's saying. Oh. I'm going to have to log into Medium to read this. Please hold. I'll have to do that from another browser, so hold on, because this is my private browser where I'm not logged into anything. So give me a moment. Let's see if I can. Now, here's another interesting thing to think about. If Medium is trying to get me to log in, that means this article is probably behind their paywall. That means when I log in, he will get money based on the amount of time I spend on the article. That means I want to spend as little time as possible on that. I don't want to give him that money. So that's why I prefer screenshots, because I don't want to give him that money. But let me try to log into my Medium account, and let's see. Okay, so here I am. And let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay, that should be this. There we go. Okay, so now we should be, okay, it is a longer article now that it's showing the whole thing. So this will sound radical. Product, development, which is engineering, and design should all report to UX research. Okay, so I don't agree with this already, but let's see how he substantiates this argument. He's going to have to explain why they shouldn't report to their own management and they should report to UX researchers for this article to be decently written. So he's saying it should be a research-driven organization. Everybody reports to the research organization led by your chief research officer or maybe a chief experience officer. Now, the chief experience officer job is already out there, and I think it can make sense for some, probably not engineering. They would report up to a CTO or a CIO, and a product typically reports up to a chief product officer. So UX and CX should report up to a chief experience officer, but he's saying F that. Everybody should report to the chief experience officer, which I imagine would make a very muddy and convoluted and difficult hierarchy for a company. I think it also would remove some power and autonomy from engineering and product, because they would no longer answer up the chain to their own management and their own domain. They would answer up the chain to someone else's domain. Now, the funny thing is, we experience this now. Many people in UX jobs answer up the chain to product or marketing or sometimes engineering. We rarely answer up an organizational ladder all the way up to a chief experience officer or chief design officer. So we're already experiencing the kind of reverse version of this, where we answer up to somebody who isn't from our domain, and we generally don't like that. We generally feel like it doesn't work. We generally feel like they don't understand us, and we generally, and I'm saying generally because it won't be everybody's experience, it will be some people's experience, we generally feel like we get overruled by these other domains. So at its very foundation, this sounds like a bad idea, but let's allow him to go in a little bit deeper and see if he can give us non-vague, extremely clear reasons why this would be a good idea, if not the best idea. And then I'll talk about where I think he got this idea. Become the world's foremost expert on your users' experiences. What's that have to do with organizational hierarchy? I'm not sure how we got here. This seems like a strange turn for the article. I assume this is kind of an SEO move and a clickbaity move so that he can get some more keywords in here. So he says a lot of time is wasted when people don't know who your users are or what those users need. Now that's funny. Last year he was teaching you that that's okay and just have the agile team do design work. So now he's got a new tune this year. Does anybody ever call him on how much he completely changes what he tells you? Does anybody ever call him on that? Because if not, that tells me he either has a non-critical thinking audience or he has such a temporary audience that they don't stick with him long enough to know what he even said last year. So what goes into your product roadmap? Your research would drive that. Yes, I'm already teaching that. I don't think you need research to be at the top of an organization to do that. You just have to have better processes and make some change. Shweta said, oh, sorry, it came up again. What goes into your product roadmap? Your research would drive that. TriTrack Agile says that, and neither I nor he invented that. So this isn't new. Product roadmap should be research driven, but we don't need a researcher to be at the top of the organizational ladder. What defines when your product is ready to ship? That would be driven by your research too. Yes, we already know this. We try to, in UX, we try to remind people that we must do usability testing, and if the idea is not testing well, it shouldn't ship yet. So nothing he's saying at this point is groundbreaking other than somehow UX research should be at the top of everything, which again to me is so bizarre coming from Mr. Everyone's a designer and I can come train your company so that everyone is fluent in UX and let your agile team do your UX. It's just surreal. Shweta says, I think he rides hype most of the time. Maybe his article is ChatGPT, but I do remember Everyone's a designer stance. What determines the delivery schedule of new capabilities? Research would drive that. Again, nothing new under the sun here. There are people who promote TriTrack Agile, task-oriented design versus being a feature factory, where our priorities and our delivery are customer-centric. I mean, he's really talking a lot about customer centricity and things that are in my book, Customers Know You Suck, and things that are in other places as well. I'm not the only person saying this. So I don't get it. Now, here we go. Everyone on your product development and design teams would be experts in the experiences of your users and customers. They would have the knowledge and understanding to make optimal decisions for your organization. Now, he's a little vague here. What I've been saying is if we had a more customer-centric approach in our organization and on our teams, and we were evidence-based and we had a lot more research that we would be doing, then there would be some natural alignment on teams because we would all be well-informed about users and customers. I think he's saying that. I think because he's usually everybody's a designer, I'm hearing something he's not saying here. I'm hearing his usual, and everyone can do the design. He's not saying that yet. It's just ringing in my head from all of the years, if not decades, of him saying that. So I just want to point that out. So yes, I think everybody should be experts on the research evidence. Once we have research, everyone on the team and in the company should know what's going on for our users and customers and our potential users and customers. So yeah, but it's so everyone should be making these decisions together. Again, this is not new. So far, the things he's saying are not new. They're in my book. I've heard other people say them. The only new thing is UX research should be the king and queen and whatever of the world. No more fighting for exposure time. Again, clickbait, SEO, what does this exposure time really have to do with this? It's really not relevant here. Research-driven roadmaps start with a solid vision. Yes, it sounds like he read my book. Fine. Research makes teams more agile. He definitely read my book. So, yeah, I get it. The better the research, the more agile your teams become. Thank you. Chapter 17 in my book. Thank you. I can't wait till Jared credits me for something. Yeah, uninformed teams build things that don't solve problems and create value. Thank you, Jared. He wasn't saying these things a year ago. Magically, I come out with a new workshop, a bunch of videos, and a book. Wow. Sounds just like the things that I say. Amazing coincidence, right? Empowered autonomy is the key to true agility. Amazing. Right out of my book. Unbelievable. Research-driven is ideal for your business. Straight out of my book. Fine. How would this happen? So according to him, you're not going to become research-driven unless everybody answers up to research. I don't think that makes sense, and I don't think it's necessary. It doesn't make sense, and we don't like when the opposite happens to us. We don't like when we answer up to someone outside of our domain. So I think what happens is he makes a lot of good points in this article that sound extremely familiar to me because they sound like they're straight out of my book, but then tries to use them as a reason to make UX research almost the CEO of the company. And I think that that part falls apart. Being research driven is the ultimate in customer centricity. Sounds like you read my book. I mean, some of you have read my book. Doesn't this sound like my book? I mean, like bizarrely like my book, not like Jared and I just happen to have the same idea. The UX world is so clouded, everyone says different things. Yeah. So ultimately, I think Jared's got some good ideas here, especially since they seem to echo, if not plagiarize, my ideas. But I don't think that it substantiates why your boss's boss should be a UX researcher, or why a designer should answer to a researcher, or why a back-end database programmer should answer to a researcher. I don't think he's done a good job substantiating that, and I don't agree with the premise. I think his setup in the middle, it makes sense, but it does not substantiate the everyone should answer up to a UX researcher. I think he's done a poor job substantiating that, and I also think it's not viable. I mean, with so many researchers being laid off recently, it is definitely one of the most misunderstood jobs. It doesn't really make sense to imagine that it's going to go from one of the most misunderstood jobs to ruler of the universe where everyone answers up to them. It's just strange. Definitely clickbait. Oh, here we go. Double Diamond 4.1 from someone I've never heard of. So I don't know who's in charge of official versions of Double Diamond. I'm not too sure why Double Diamond is getting versions. Oh, Ana Lucia says, can't we work as a team? Everyone has their own responsibilities and their own vision. If we respect each other and try to work as a team, no one answers to anyone in that somewhat toxic way. Yeah, I cover that in my book where I talk about a truly empowered team has everyone empowered on it, not just two people or a few people or this role. So, yeah. I'm celebrating 20 years of the Double Diamond, so I've redone it. Okay? The UK Design Council says the Double Diamond stood the test of time. Okay, Double Diamond 1.0. Fine. Double Diamond 2.0. The Design Council. I don't know who they are. Does anyone know who the Design Council is or who's on them? UK Design Council. Who are they? Yeah, who we are. Who the freak are you? $40 people. Okay. White person, 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 white person. White person, thank you, not white person. Okay, finally one. So a lot of white presenting people. That's not a diverse group. I'm not happy with that. And I don't know why we're relying on them. Who are they? I didn't recognize any of their names. So anyway, Double Diamond versus version 2, which I'm not familiar with, says this is about connections and relationships. This is about leadership and storytelling. Help, I'm choking on this bullshit. This is orientation and vision setting. This is continuing the journey. This is the type of thing I usually see when a company wants to come out with a new version of something so they can sell you new training. I don't know if they did this, but that's what it feels like to me. Double Diamond version 3. We don't even have a picture of that. I guess it was not important. We don't even have a picture of it. Double Diamond 4. We don't have a picture of that. This is it. Expansion of the Double Diamond based on AI. Lots of dots and arrows. Does this have meaning to you? Is this actionable? The empathy animation. Empathy. Please feel the double diamond. So this graphic does not help me, does not make sense. What's the difference? What does that mean? How does AI help us? Now we have 4.1. Well, this is a Venn diagram we've all been seeing for years, whether we've seen it with the hexagons or as a Venn diagram. We've seen this forever. Desirability, feasibility. It's usually desirability, feasibility, viability. They've added sustainability, which again, whatever that means. Now, what is this mess? So the author made this. So first of all, this is not accessible. The background is dizzying and confusing because it has so many lines. We've got the double diamond, and then we have spiky beep. We have spiky triangles sticking out from the double diamond. So he's put desirability over here under explore, I guess. Viability over here near catalyze, whatever that means. He put feasibility over here by catalyze and sustainability over here. These seem a bit random. Ultimately, you need your work to be all four of these. So drawing them in one specific place of a diagram doesn't really make sense. Then, this is all very hard to read. We have blue words here: orientation and value setting, connecting and convening, continuing the journey, leadership and storytelling. So that's just from the version 2 diagram that we saw with unexplained changes. Then we've got a bunch of red things that are really hard to read on the black, and certainly wouldn't pass color contrast standards. This says people and planet centered, which is weird that it's over here and not connected to sustainability, because I would think people and planet has to do with sustainability. Inclusive and welcoming difference, which I don't know what that connects to. Zooming in and out, I don't know what that means. Human and artificial, whatever. Collaborating and connecting, didn't you already say that? Testing and growing, why is testing over here when the double diamond testing is usually late in the model? Circular and regenerative, I don't know what that means. Are we all starfish? Ana Lucia says that's the Christmas northern star, going from a diamond to a chiseled diamond to a northern star. So, okay, I wouldn't know Christmas stars, but thank you for that. So obviously, what the best thing to one double diamond I can get behind is the one Stephanie made, which is what we're going to look at now. So the absolute champion, legend, genius, Stephanie Walter. I mean, I just love everything this person says and does. This person cannot do wrong. I haven't found it yet. Good luck finding it. Stephanie decided to run with this and said, well, it's trendy to rework and create your own design process, so here's mine. Here's what it really means to be user-centric. And then, luckily, Steph uploaded this to Redbubble, so you can actually buy. I already ordered a sticker. You should too. If you're looking for it on Redbubble, search for Pentagram User-Centric Design Process. So you can buy it as shirts and tote bags and whatever, but here's what Steph has done. Steph started with a nice satanic pentagram and said, collect their souls. Empathize, read their minds. Democratize, which again, Steph wins the internet for the year with democratize. So yes, summoning the demons. Eat their brainstorm, yes. And feedback, feed the demon with users in the middle of the pentagram with magic and symbols all around it. And at the bottom it says, made with tears by Stephanie Walter. Design. No users were harmed in the process, for sure. So please enjoy your new user-centered design process. But again, going back to this one, the problem is that these aren't actionable. I have no idea what to do or not do after seeing this. And as we learned from Abby Covert, a diagram is supposed to help me. A diagram is supposed to make things clearer. A diagram is supposed to guide me. None of these diagrams help me do my work. I use human-centered design and user-centered design. Double Diamond is a derivative of that. Hey everybody, just use human-centered design and user-centered design. You don't need any of these derivatives, especially when the derivatives are just getting weirder and weirder. All right, we ran a little late, but not the full hour and a half that I thought. So as usual, won't you please subscribe and tell people about our channel? We're getting close to 7,000 subscribers, but we are still shadow banned, so we need your help getting the word out. Ana Lucia says, I would definitely like to know why they decided a wavy gray background would be a great decision. I can't read anything. Yeah, totally agree. Especially the dark red and blue on the wavy black and charcoal. I'm not an artist, but I know that wasn't good. So that is today's critical thinking. Let's take a look at the calendar because I do have a lot of travel coming up. I'm also hoping to be starting a new job later this month. They've verbally offered it. I have verbally accepted it. We're still waiting on paperwork. That means I am going to have to move these shows probably about 3 hours earlier than they are now. So heads up, for now the shows will stay normal time, but once I start the job, there'll probably be some new times. So Monday, we're going to do a whole show just on the quadrant exercise. We've seen the quadrant a little bit in some of our Think Out Loud episodes and a couple of other things that I've been doing, but someone said, can you just do a show on that quadrant? And the quadrant is in the book, though I don't have a picture of it, I just describe it. So we're going to talk more about what is the quadrant, where did I get it from, because I didn't invent it, what's it good for, what's it not good for, and we're going to go through it, and maybe we'll do a live Miro board and we'll practice a quadrant exercise together. That's Monday. Be there. Tuesday is office hours with Dr. Nick at regular time. He has confirmed that he can be there. Then there are no shows for the rest of next week. I'm going to be in Amsterdam speaking at an Agile conference. Then our next show will be Monday, June 20. I hope to be doing office hours at the usual time, but I will be traveling, so we'll see. We also have an early office hours that day. I will try to do both, but we will be traveling and I will do the best I can. Things might have to get moved around, so always check the events calendar at deltacx.com/links or check in our Slack and Discord communities in the live events channel, since I have a bot posting some events there. What else is planned? Let's see. Wednesday the 21st is our community hangout / group therapy, as we like to call it. And then critical thinking will hopefully be 2 weeks from today, Friday the 23rd. And yeah, that's what's coming up. So if you have any last comments, get them in now because the show is winding up. Remember, all of these shows are always archived on YouTube in the Critical Thinking Streams playlist, so you can always find them later if you missed some of it. Yeah, thanks to you, Malika, for coming and joining in the fun and the commentaries. And I hope everybody has a super relaxing weekend and some good weather and just some time with the people and things you care about. So thanks again to people for sending stuff in and for coming to the show, and I'll see everybody Monday to talk about the quadrant. Thanks. Bye. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are